Hello, we're back with the CodeWork Altino Facilitators program, and this module is to get you started with Altino Scratch programming. Learning outcomes. Firstly, to be familiar with the Scratch programming platform, to know how to move the Scratch programming blocks on your tablet or computer. By the end of this module, we want you to be able to program Altino to switch on its forward light using the Scratch programming language, and to program Altino to move using the programming language, and to know how to access the dynamic sensor data on Altino using the Scratch platform. I believe that's the most exciting part of this robot. So this time for this module, I'm actually going to talk through the resources, because this is exactly, you will see this at the beginning of every module that you teach. So because we're now using the robot, you need to make sure before you can go through this module that you have one robot ready to go and that it's fully charged. So therefore it should have taken about 2.5 hours to fully charge the battery. That charge should now last between 6 and 8 hours. You need one tablet or even an iPhone will work. And some of the blocks and mazes you can purchase from us. If you don't have any, you can make do or make your own. And then of course this actual module. So the first thing you need to do is download the Orchestra Lite app. Now we went through this in the previous module, so go back to getting started with Altino apps if you don't know how to do this, and because we won't go through this again in this module, which is all about Scratch. So what is Scratch? Scratch is a popular language for coding beginners. So if I was doing this, there's a demo icon here. This is a video tutorial, but if I was demoing you this right in front of you, I'd hold up my iPad or computer and I'd show you how the Scratch platform works. So firstly, on the right hand side, you can see where the working space is where you code. At the moment it's showing blank space. The blue things you can see there are the actual programming blocks, and they're the things you actually drag and drop onto the working space. The little menu there is the scripts, and that's different scripts called Control, Altino, and the white space there is called a stage. So the Scratch platform also has top menus to control. You have a cloning tool, you have scissors, you have a green flag, and you have a red stop sign. So I'm going to show you now on my computer how that works. So here it is. I've got the Scratch platform on my PC. It looks pretty much the same as it would on your iPad. So I'm in this is where we talked about the different scripts, motion, sound, etc. Mostly in the curriculum you're going to be using the Altino menu that you can see here, the control menu, and the data menu, and operators. But let's have a look and go back into the Altino menu, which is the main menu. So that's your various scripts that you'll use. And you basically just drag and drop. So let's have a look. Let's turn on the forward light, drag and drop. We want to turn it on. Don't worry about not knowing how to do this, because the whole idea of each module is you'll actually go through this step by step with your students. We want it to wait 1 second. Let's say we want to change that to 2 seconds. I just clicked on it, and then we want to turn the light, forward light, off. Let's say we want to run that. And when we run it, we either double click the blocks like that, and when you've synced that with your robot, you should actually see your robot forward lights going on. Now if you click, here is a cloning tool. So you can use that to duplicate. Here is a cutting tool, so you can use that to delete, for example. Now within each block you might have various options to choose. So let's have a look here. That might be the left light, to turn the left light on, or a reverse light. So that, and we'll turn it off. So this is, have a go now at just dragging your blocks over. And see how it works. Have a go of your cutting, the deleting function, and have a go of the duplicating function. These are just good little tips to show your students how the platform works. So I hope by now that you're familiar with the drag and drop. The students pick it up really quickly. You sort of use a feather light to drag and drop your menu items. We talk through all of these. If you use the green flag up here to run your program, you need to use a brown block from the events script called when flag clicked at the top of your blocks. Otherwise, you can simply double click your blocks to run your program. It's called running your program, which is what your students will do after setting up their code. And that's what we just did. That's what I just did with my blocks. When you code with Altino in the Scratch platform, you do not use the stage as indicated below. Instead, your Altino cart is your stage. Most people learn Scratch by programming a sprite or digital figure as shown below. With Altino, you and your students are programming in the real world with a robot car. So here is an example of the second module, controlling the lights on a robot, of how the students can use blocks in Scratch. Now I've already shown you how to do it and you've already had a go of it. But here is an example of the type of content that's in the menu. So this is basically showing them LED on, LED off with their different lights, and this is to get your students practice moving and controlling the blocks and getting them to do what you've just done. Practicing with a light feather touch of their finger, changing the menu items on the block, and all the ways you can control the different lights on your robot. Now you've just practiced that, I hope. The students will pick that up even more quickly because many of your students will be used to using their tablet and using their fingers and have experience in manipulating the blocks. And this is another example of what's in the module where they can see how to change the numbers. So for instance, when I showed you that demonstration, it was easy for me to change the numbers from wait 1 second to wait 3 seconds, for instance. There's a little bit down here about if they're using a Samsung tablet, but that's only relevant, and we'll talk, and you'll see that if you're going through the module. Most students we know in Australia will be using an iPad. Here is another example where from the second module of the Scratch program, where are the lights? And this is where you can give a demonstration of where the lights are positioned on your robot. And it's important to say, see the note, the menu doesn't signify movement, it signifies the position of the lights on Altino as shown in the diagram. So you have forward lights, you have 2 forward lights, you have left lights and right lights, which are great for basically creating blinkers. You have brake light and you have reverse light. So again, this is straight out of the program where you're showing how to use the scripts. Below we're showing that to do these exercises, they're using the Altino purple script and they're using the yellow control script. And here is one of the first exercises you can take the students through. I've just shown you how to do it on my computer where they can turn on the forward light. Note that all the blocks are given step by step. So again, it's up to you. With a PowerPoint presentation, if you want to show that only after they've given a go, but as this is the first time that they're doing it, show all the blocks and show how they can do it, and then show how they click on the blocks to run the program as shown here. So by now you should be able to use Scratch programming to turn on the forward light on your robot. If you can't do that at this point, can you please ask somebody for help, or simply just email us and we'll take you through the process. Here is another example from the Make a Robot Move module. The rear to move function, the rear wheels are used to move Altino forwards and backwards. The steering function, the front wheels are used for steering. We talk a lot about this in the module and it's quite interesting for the students to learn how the robot moves. And this is showing the blocks and how they use. And for instance, to make the robot go backwards, you use a negative number. So I'm going to go through that now with my own blocks and show you. Okay, so I've gone back to my blocks. I'm actually going to use the delete function to get rid of what I had on the stage. See how I'm doing that. So now I'm starting from scratch, and I'm showing how to make the robot move. So I drag my movement block across yes, I do want it to move forward 300. I won't worry about changing those numbers. Then I need to make sure that Altino does that for, let's say, 2 seconds, as so. And now I want Altino to stop. So I simply enter 0. So I suggest you do that. I'm running my program now. So my robot went forward 300 for 2 seconds and then it stopped. So you may want to do that yourself now. So going back to the tutorial again, you just use negative numbers if you want the robot to move backwards. So this is just going through everything that's directly out of the module. We've gone through all of this and it takes us to the next activity, which is controlling the car wheel motors. Make it go forward 500, 3-second wait and stopped. Now we just did this with my blocks. So here is an example of the activity you could use with your students. Now we get to steering, and here is an example of how you use the steering block. So I suggest now that you go through this activity yourself. Stop the video if you like. And then we get to accessing data. So one of the best learning opportunities for students is to view Altino sensor data in real time. So on an iPad, click the orange menu button as shown in the image below. See how the data changes, for example, with the CD with the light sensor and with the IR sensors or the infrared sensors. Don't forget your iPad will need to be connected to your robot via Bluetooth for you to see this occurring. So just for the fun of it, see how the CD data changes. All you need to do is hold your hand above the robot and bring it back up again. And what the robot is doing is detecting the difference in ambient light on it. So, and you can see how that data will change for the CD sensor. And same with the infrared sensor. Move your robot towards the wall and the IR1 and IR2 sensors, I think they're the front 2 sensors, you'll see the data change there. And then you can see how the students can now learn to program the robot with the IR sensor. So for instance, they can see once the IR sensor data changes to particular data, they can make the robot move. So I'm hoping by this time you can sort of get a bit of a concept feel for how the programming will work. And the data will be really important. And that's when you get to use, they'll get to use data variables, etc. So that's the end of this Scratch module. Again, if you have any issues at all, please ask anybody in your school to help. And if you're still having problems, please don't hesitate to ask us, send us an email, and we'd love to help you and make sure that you're confident with these basic concepts of Scratch before delivering the Scratch module.